Hey everyone, we are live. Welcome everyone on panel and to those joining us from around the globe for Global Ed Student Chat. Today we're going to be discussing what it means to be culturally responsive. Just as an overview, Global Ed Student Chat is a student-led Twitter chat that connects K-12 students around the world to discuss topics and questions related to character education, social justice, and citizenship. Global Ed Student Chat creates opportunities for students to network with others, gain perspective, build relationships with new learning partners in a literacy-rich learning environment, as well as experience social media as a powerful platform for learning and establish a positive digital footprint. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to turn things over to Maddie, who will share some of the technology talk behind the scenes of Global Ed Student Chat and how you can get involved.
Hi everyone. If you're watching us on YouTube, you may sign in with a Google account and use the chat to comment or ask a question. If you have Twitter, follow the hashtag #GlobalEdsChat to read the ideas, thoughts, questions, and stuff shared by others. We will use the Q1A1 format. Use Global Ed's chat to add your thinking and get involved in the conversation. Feel free to share your first name and where in the world you are joining us from today. And if you ask questions, we will bring them to the panel. Please remember the audience for this chat is K through 12, so your comments and questions should be appropriate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maddie. And we are beyond lucky to have with us an amazing expert guest on panel, and that is Amber Coleman Mortley. And Amber, I know we have an introduction here for you that is amazing, but if you could just give yourself a brief introduction so the folks joining in can get to know you a little better.
Yeah, awesome. So I will not read my formal who I am, but my name is Amber Coleman Mortley. I am the Director of Social Engagement at iCivic. So from 9 to 5, I am super focused on how do we improve K-12 civic education for all students. And then from 5 till probably 9 in the morning, I'm working with my daughter Garvey, who is also a member of this awesome community. And we discuss topics and issues of politics, civics, government, race, equity, how to improve K-12 education, family life on our Let's K-12 Better podcast. And I also blog about these things as a mom blogger on Mom of All Capes. So people know me because I talk about these issues all the time, and I'm super excited to be here with all of you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I highly encourage, if you're not subscribed to the Let's K-12 Better podcast, that you check that out. It is awesome. I learn a lot through that podcast. So please check that out. So thank you, Amber. And next, we're going to kind of kick things over to Garvey, who will be talking about our Tweet and Talk norms.
Yeah, sure. So we will have 30 minutes to discuss 3 to 4 questions. Please be mindful that this chat is open to students in K through 12. Active participation from all classes is how we learn. All comments made during the chat should be positive and productive. We welcome diverse opinions. You may not agree with something that someone has said, but we ask that when challenging an idea, that you respectfully disagree with the idea and not the individual person.
Awesome. So we typically jump right into the questions, but we wanted to talk a little bit about what does cultural responsiveness mean before we dig into these questions. And I know Erin here is going to kind of take us through this introduction, and then we're going to dive into the questions.
Perfect, thanks. So before we can really dig into a conversation about being culturally responsive, our team thought it would be helpful to build on our understanding of the terms culture and responsive. So in the context of what we'll be discussing this month, Merriam-Webster defines culture as the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. Also, the set of values, conventions, or social practices associated with a particular field, activity, or societal characteristic. Merriam-Webster defines responsive as quick to respond or react appropriately or sympathetically. With these definitions in mind, our student leaders thought that culture isn't just about race. While race is a key part of our culture, it is only just one piece of the greater whole. So every individual brings their own culture into their conversations, and in this shared space, we understand, respect, and celebrate differences while appreciating what we have in common. In order to be responsive, one must first work to listen to the perspective of others and respond thoughtfully and positively in order to grow, learn, and adapt to new relationships and experiences. So I'll pass it on to Nora for the first question.
Actually, and before we get to the questions, I want to take the time to go around the room because we talked about individuals and how culture, kind of captures all of us as individuals. But let's start with a little introduction of the individuals that we have in the room here real quick. So if we can go around the room and just give a quick introduction of who you are and where you're coming in from, and then we'll take it over to the questions. So why don't we start off with Garvey?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Garvey. I'm in 7th grade and I'm coming from the DMV area.
Awesome. And Nora?
My name's Nora. I am a junior in North Texas, and I am a part of the SWAT team at my school. So we help with leadership and technology, and I'm also in band.
Awesome. And Maddie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Madeline. I'm in 6th grade. I live on an island in Alaska called Wrangell, and I love to read.
And Aaron?
Hi, everyone. I'm a second-year student studying Maritime Commerce at the University of Toronto. I'm currently in the Greater Toronto area, and my greatest passion is working with students in music and mental health.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you, everyone. I'm Michael Drezick. I am a district tech integrator at Lakeshore CSD here in New York. And it is time for some questions. So, Nora, do you want to kick us off with Q1?
So our first question is, what do you love about your culture? So I'm not sure who wants to go first or if you guys want me to start that off.
I can go first. I think one thing, and I'll talk specifically about my race in this question, but I'm South Korean, and I think one of the greatest things that we like is we share a lot of our food and a lot of what we have. And I think it's very common for Koreans to, for example, when we're visiting another person's house, we'll bring like a giant batch of goodies or food or something like that. And I feel like that's a very cultural thing for us to do as a norm. And also, my mom was telling me how when she was younger, a lot of the neighborhoods, they would have dinner around the same time, and someone would bring something to another house to put on the table. So the idea of sharing and the idea of appreciating your neighbors and the people around you, I think is heavily embedded into our culture, which is something that I really love.
Hi. What I love about my culture is how I'm Tlingit Native, and in our culture we like to tell stories and we dance and drum, and that's one of the ways we tell them. And I like how welcoming it is, and just kind of how it's a fun way of that.
I can't really say that I have one culture because my family comes from a lot of different places and our family is widespread throughout the globe. So I would say that that's the special thing about my culture. It's that my family has different stories and just, I don't know, they've worked really hard to get me where I am at this point. And yeah.
So what I would say I love about my culture is, so I'm Grenadian. My family is from the island in the West Indies. And I don't know too much about my culture, but I do typically just say that I am half Black or I'm mixed. And so I tend to just really identify with all the struggles of being mixed in America and being told that we do not count as being part Black and that we have to pick a race or we have to only act like we're part Black. I'm not allowed to act Black and I'm not allowed to act white. So I I really love being able to identify with other people that are my race and that can help me through those same experiences.
So I will jump in here. I just love the fact that, the things that each one of you guys mentioned, whether it's, music or food or understanding where your place is in the world, culture is just a very important way for us to kind of bag our identity together, right? It's a way for us to kind of carry around, this is who I am. These are the things that these are the traditions that I carry with me. These are the ways that, people typically like me see the world. Granted, we do not want to place stereotypes on anyone, right? But this is how people like me kind of navigate the world or think about worshiping or think about, food. And so I think it's really important for us that as we talk about the things that we love about our culture, that we continually analyze the ways in which our culture is placed within a larger context of the world, right? How do other people perceive my culture? Are other people perceiving my culture the way that I perceive my culture? How can I share my culture with other people, right? And what can I learn from in an exchange of sharing cultures that I could maybe, try, right? To expand my own understanding of who I am. So, I really appreciate all that you guys have shared. I just want to drop in on Garvey. I, identify as a Black woman, right? So I've grown up with a cultural tradition of a person who's from enslaved Black people in the United States. So thinking about the ways in which, food and religion and dance and music are super important to how I identify and walk around in the world.
Thank you so much for that. And that kind of echoes what we're seeing on Twitter. We have the Digital Grade Sixes joining in on Twitter from Ottawa, Ontario. And we're hearing from YV, I love how we use so many colors during our festivals. I love when we get to visit people. I love when we celebrate our festivals with colors and lights and food. And I'm hearing how we make so much yummy food during festivals from initials AS. And I pray and have fun. So there's a religious component. I love that every lunar year I get money, right? So there may be different reasons or different ways to celebrate. So so just tapping into some of that conversation on Twitter as well as the perspectives here. So thank you so much. And I think we're ready to kind of kick it over to the second question, Nora.
So our second question today is, what do you wish more people knew about your culture?
Yeah, so I can, I guess, speak on behalf of an East Asian immigrant. Obviously, don't want to stereotype, but that is how I identify, and that is my background. I moved to Vancouver, and then now I'm currently in Toronto. But I was born and raised in Korea, and I think one of the biggest things that I wish that more people knew about were the different communities and the very evidently distinct identities of East Asian people. I feel like it's very common for people to group them just being like them Asians. But I think it's been getting better with the different, I guess, positives and the energies and the different food and the culture and the music from each country is really shining on their own. But I do think that it's really important to acknowledge what people or which country they identify with instead of grouping people into a larger whole. And this is kind of like a bit on the side. Like, I really love K-pop. A lot of people ask me about K-pop. I know that's like really booming now. That is something I really love about my culture. But one other thing is I really appreciate and love all the historical and traditional beauties of Korea as well. And maybe that's something that I want to share with other people and hope that they can learn about.
Hi. Something I wish people knew more about my culture is there's actually a famous leader we have in our culture, and her name is Elizabeth Paratovich. And a lot of people might not know about her, but she fought for Native rights, kind of like what Martin Luther King did, but for Natives. And yeah, I wish more people knew about her and how she really helped us.
I think that's really cool. I also think that's really cool, Erin, because I honestly don't really know what to say because it's like, okay, I'm just gonna add on to what Erin said because what Erin said about people grouping like one whole race into just like Asian or just Black or just Hispanic. Um, yeah, I really think more people need to realize like within Black people, there's also tribes, and within I'm so sorry, Hispanic people, there's also different countries and different languages some places speak. So yeah.
Yeah, really similar to what Aaron and Garvey said. Something that I wish a lot of people knew is that not necessarily every Black person wants to be called African American. And so, like I said, I am Grenadian, so I am Black, but my family does originate from Africa. But we don't necessarily call ourselves African American because we were not brought to America. I'm a first generation American. So my family didn't come to America until my dad, and then I was born here. And so we don't necessarily call ourselves African American because we didn't bring that American part into the family until me. And I know there's certain families that, like especially Ethiopians and Nigerian friends that I have, their whole family is from those countries and they came to America for the first time to have my friends. And so just because they are Black doesn't necessarily mean that they are African American, which I feel like isn't really taught in US history since we learned so much about slavery and all of African American culture.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just echo that there's a diversity of experience within all what we would call BIPOC people. So Black, Indigenous, people of color, right? So I'm going to say that term one more time, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. So when people just group people of color together, right? There's diversity within people of color. There's diversity within Asian communities, within Black communities, within Indigenous communities, within Hispanic communities. And it's really important for each and every one of us, no matter who we are and how we identify, to honor that, right? Again, stereotypes are a unfortunately negative way for us to shortcut how we should treat other people, right? And so we want to make sure that when I'm engaging with someone who looks like or is the same color or looks similar to someone else that I've engaged with, I want to make sure that I'm giving that person a chance to just be themselves, right? Versus me placing judgment or value on who that person is based on an assumption of who they are, right? So, the things that I wish that people, would understood about, my culture, that there's diversity, right? Like, Garvey's dad is from Trinidad and Tobago. I am, from the United States, right? Tracing all the way back to like the 1700s, right? So like thinking about like, what's my experience versus Garvey's father's experience, right? I hope that we all begin to, in this day and age, see that wonderful richness of culture that all kinds of people bring, even if they all claim to be Black or all claim to be Asian or all claim to be Indigenous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so our third question today is why is it important to be culturally responsive as online as well as in person? So I'll go ahead and start off on this one. When you are talking to someone that is, to use the same term as Amber, a BIPOC person, if you are in person with them, a big part of digital citizenship is when you talk in person, they can read your facial expressions and your body language so they know exactly what you mean. But if you're online and you say something, they may read that differently because they don't get to hear your tone and see your language. And so if you are really careful and educating yourselves online when talking to people that are not the same race as you or that have different experiences as you in general, just really be careful of what you say and know how certain things might affect them because they don't know exactly what you mean.
I think it's important to be culturally responsive online because you can learn a lot of other new things about people's culture that's not your own, like that you might not have known, especially if you only know about like the cultures around your area. You can learn ones from all around the world, and I think that's really cool.
I think it's important to be culturally responsive so that you don't offend anyone or make someone feel uncomfortable. Because just as Nora said, like your body language and your tone and how you're speaking to someone, like if you say something that's offensive or rude, like it could really hurt their feelings or you could get in trouble. So I think that's why you have to make sure we're culturally responsive online and in person.
Yeah, I definitely echo everything all of our wonderful speakers said before. I also think it's important to mention that it's okay to ask questions if you're unsure. And I feel like a lot of people kind of skip over that and start making assumptions. But right now, we're really in that age where a lot of people are able to freely express themselves or going through the transition. For example, if you identify as a member of the LGBTQ2 plus and allies community, or if you're a member of the BIPOC community, regardless, everyone has their own story, everyone has their own experiences, and if you're unsure and you want to learn more, I think asking a simple question can start the conversation, but also allow others to learn more about you as well as you lead that conversation.
So you guys killed it. That's amazing. Everyone added some really awesome stuff. You know, the only thing that I would sprinkle on here would be that, you know, in our charge to be culturally responsive, we have to center empathy, right? And we need to make sure that the way that we engage with other people, we're thinking about centering their humanity. We're making sure that if we do have questions, you know, is this a question that I should ask in front of a whole bunch of people? Or is this a question that I can ask one-on-one later, right? If I'm uncertain about something or something has made me uncomfortable, right? You know, how do I engage with the individual who I feel uncomfortable about an interaction, right? The other thing that, you know, I feel like we've forgotten to add here is that, you know, white people also have culture, right? So like, we don't want to just say only BIPOC people have culture and like, you know, y'all don't have no, like, you know, white people do also have culture, right? And so thinking about the ways in which we identify, right? If we're being culturally responsive, we're all in this together, right? And so when we're thinking we're all in this together, are the narratives that we're reading, is it inclusive of everyone? Are the ways that we celebrate holidays, right? And think about our time off. Is it inclusive? Are we using inclusive language of people that speak different languages other than possibly English, right? So, you know, it's not just the skin tone or our cultural heritage. There are so many other ways that we can be culturally responsive that elevates the humanity of other people.
Wow, yeah, this has been an amazing chat, and I feel like the time just flew today with so many great points and so many great perspectives, and everybody bringing their awesomeness to this chat. So thank you for sharing your voice with the world. When I see the hashtag Better Together, this kind of echoes that, and I'm hearing, you know, a celebration of our uniqueness and listening to others and centering empathy and humanity and all of these wonderful points. So thank you, everyone. We have we're kind of coming up on our half hour here. There's been a little bit of conversation on Twitter, and in addition to what's happening here. And Aaron, I know, is going to kind of close us out. Unless anyone has any other final thoughts, I know Aaron's going to take us through here.
Sure, yeah. I personally, you know, out of all the chats that I've done, every single one of them are great, but this is definitely a super memorable one for me. So thank you. And thank you everyone that's watching for joining us for our Global Ed Student Chat Tweet and Talk this month. Thank you as always to our student leadership team and our teachers, and especially our guest today, Amber. Thank you so much for joining us. Please keep the conversation going by answering our slow chat questions for the rest of the month. And be sure to use the hashtag GlobalEdSSChat hashtag so our team can interact with you on Twitter. And feel free to also share on Flipgrid. The grid code and password are both GlobalEdSSChat. Also, please follow us on social media. Our website is globaledsschat.com. Twitter and Instagram are both at globaledsschat. And watch for more details on next month's chat, which will be posted on our website on the 1st of each month. So our next one will be March 1st. And the next live chat will happen March 9th on the topic of innovation and inspiration. Please note we're currently recruiting members for our social media ambassador program. We're always looking for students who are looking to grow as digital leaders. More information about our social media ambassador program can be found on globaledsschat.com. Please send us an email, or you can also DM us for more information. Thank you again for joining us, and see you online.